Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and it's time for episode 2 of my rewatching all of the Star Wars films now that we've seen The Rise of Skywalker. And today, I get to break down Attack of the Clones. Oh my gosh. This one might be the worst. Still working on my overall ranking, but this one, to me, has a lot of problems. Let's break it all down. So, first up, we got to talk about the fact that this scrawl, they opened the movie with yet again more boring political distress and galactic senate unrest in the galactic senate. Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic. This separatist movement under the leadership of the mysterious Count Dooku has made it who we just meet later in the movie, has made it difficult for the limited number of Jedi Knights to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Senator Amidala, the former Queen of Naboo, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issue of creating an army of the Republic to assist the overwhelmed Jedi. The whole thing is so confusing because, again, apparently now Naboo means a lot in the galaxy, even though it was just a small planet in the previous movie, and now they're all building an army, but then what army? Whose armies are whose is entirely confusing throughout the whole movie. And as we joked about when I made the honest trailer for Attack of the Clones with those guys back then, they never actually attack. The clones never attack. Unsure what is happening. Yoda enlists them later to sort of beat the droid army that Dooku and everybody has brewing. So the whole thing is just a mess. But let's go even further of why it's a mess. To me, the biggest problem, before we even get to why it's a mess, is sort of meeting Anakin again and how crazy he is. Like, this is the second meeting they've had of this amazing love story between Anakin and Padme.
Don't get me wrong. Obi-Wan is a great mentor.
He's like gloats. He's crazy.
I'm truly thankful to be his apprentice.
Like Red Flag City.
In some ways. A lot of ways. I'm really ahead of him. I'm ready for the trials.
Yeah, he seems ready.
But he feels that I'm too unpredictable. He won't let me move on.
That must be frustrating.
It's worse. He's overly critical. He never listens.
Oh man, ladies, are you just
understand.
falling in love with this guy?
It's not fair.
And look how hot I am now. Oh, it's just... And then let me give you some help. So it made me feel uncomfortable the whole movie. Like, look at this, like, as if, who isn't going to be Darth Vader? This creep. This creep gives so many red flags to the whole movie that you're just like, this is a love story? It's a tragic tale of abuse from Padme, and it gets worse in part 3 of she's just gaslighted and completely stuck in this abusive relationship with him. And it's really, really disturbing for me in this movie and gets worse in part 3. But let's rewind a bit more because it's important to then he also meets Palpatine, who, wow, I wonder if he's the bad guy. It's such like weird. They hide the Emperor in the cloak as if we don't know that that's happening. I guess if you've never seen a Star Wars, you might believe it. But anyway, this key scene is important too because now that we've seen Rise of Skywalker, I pulled some clips and I want to share some thoughts of how this film holds up now that we know the full Skywalker saga. So let's watch a couple more.
In time, you will learn to trust your feelings. Then you will be invincible.
Foreshadowing.
I have said it many times. You are the most gifted Jedi I have ever met.
And he's just met him.
I see you
past few years.
the greatest of all Jedi.
I'm sure he says that to a lot of them.
More powerful than Master Yoda.
Now look, he's clearly lifting up his hubris, right? We know that's happening. Does he actually believe any of that?
Himself, my Padawan, he is not ready to be given this assignment in his own yet.
The council is confident in its decision, Obi-Wan.
Boy has exceptional skills.
But he still has much to learn, Master. His abilities have made him, well, arrogant.
Yes. A flaw more and more common among Jedi. Too sure of themselves.
What's frustrating is when you leave when you leave Phantom Menace, Yoda and all them don't trust him, right? And then in the beginning of this movie, they sort of trust him again. And then by the end of the movie, the next one, they don't trust him again. They really have no idea who to really believe, is what we learned through these prequels, that they really don't know what's going on.
Remember, Obi-Wan, if the prophecy is true, your apprentice is the only one who can bring the Force back into balance.
So that's a very important line. So he's the only one who can bring it back into balance, meaning his kids will do it, is what we now know in hindsight, right? His kids are the ones who are actually going to bring the balance. And then in theory, those kids are going to then train the one person who will keep the balance, because she'll destroy the Emperor, because it's the Emperor's granddaughter. It still doesn't make sense to me. All right, well, we watched the creepy Anakin scene, but as if, there's so much bickering between Obi-Wan and Anakin still, but Obi-Wan is trying his best. But I don't have a problem with Ewan MacGregor in this movie. He's definitely not the problem. He goes on his own mission, but the problems all arise with Anakin, and here's yet another example like Red Flag City.
What is your suggestion, Master Jedi?
Oh, Anakin's not a Jedi yet. He's still a Padawan learner. But I was thinking...
Hold on a minute.
Excuse me. I was thinking I would stay in the Lake Country. There's some places up there that are very isolated.
Excuse me. I'm in charge of security here, milady.
And this is my home. I know it very well. That's
It's
why...
like, let me
I think it would be wise if you took advantage of my
rudely
knowledge.
call you out in front of everybody on my job. Look at him. Yeah, that's like,
Perfect.
let's not date for a little. Let me take a break. It's what any rational woman would say in these sort of situations where he just aggressively tries to take charge. These are like sort of foreshadowing moments, but they're played so intensely that it's hard to like. Obviously, we know what's coming, but he's trying. Lucas directs us so badly, I think, and Hayden Christensen's just playing sort of whiny Luke is what I feel like he's doing for most of the movie. That and then does it so annoyingly because that's sort of the character he's. Well, that's my son later, so let me watch what he did. Sort of try and emulate a similar Skywalker feel, and it doesn't work for me at all. He's really the biggest problem, and this movie is so. He's such a big part of this movie, but beyond that, it's really the love story. And the love story is literally one of the worst love stories I think I've ever seen. I think the love story in Twilight is more romantic than this one. Kylo Ren and Rey have a better love story than these two. And here is the most iconic one I can think of. I don't like sand.
It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Man, he's just such a romantic ladies' man. Doesn't he just want to
Not like here.
make you kiss him?
Here everything is soft
Here, everything is soft.
and smooth.
Oh, let me touch you. Literally, that was the pickup line. I didn't remember, like, I don't like sand was the move that got her to not only like look at this. Give her do me eyes. The I don't like sand line is what made her kiss him? Or was he using the force? Was she's sort of dumb in this moment and he was like forcing himself on her a little bit? This makes no sense. Like, what? Because he's hot with his rat tail? She's just so turned on by him that she can't hold this strong woman from Phantom Menace, this senator,
Shouldn't have done that.
can't like hold it up while they're on these like bachelor dates across the galaxy on Naboo. It's just so frustrating to watch how her character keeps going down and down and down and down. People are all complaining about Rose Tico and from Last Jedi this, but hello, Padma has like the worst story for a female in so many movies. We'll get to it, but she dies because out of love. This woman who has 2 babies to take care of dies from love, not being loved, of her broken heart. It's just embarrassing for Natalie Portman. I feel so bad because she is such a wonderful actor and she's trying her damnedest in this movie. But this love story is horrible. It is horrible. And it started because, like I said in my Phantom Menace rewatch, it started there because the age difference was so bad. And now he's like of an age, it seems like, all right, well, now they're at least closer in age. But it's like, you're right. No, you were that little kid. And you'd think she would be like hard to have a romantic connection with him because she hasn't seen him since she was a little kid. So you're watching and you're like, well, wait a second. What is she doing? Oh, wait, you're that little kid I babysit for. Now you're hot. All right. I'm kind of into that. It's like she's into some weird fetish. I can't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. One thing I will give this movie credit for, I do love the scene where Obi-Wan goes and finds them off the map. He figures out where the secret base is, and he goes off to watch. Where was it? I wrote this down. But this moment where he finds the clone planet of Kimono. He gets the Kimono place. He goes there and finally steps into the clone army. It felt like this cool like Black Mirror episode of what happens if you're suddenly like, oh, hello, yes, that clone army you ordered, it's ready. What do you think? And these guys are like, don't know better.
I'd hoped you would be pleased.
They don't know. But here, like all these little fetuses, and it's like, yeah, they're all ready.
Think creatively. You will find that they are immensely superior to droids. We take great pride in our combat education and training programs.
So this was the most fascinating part of the movie for me, and I liked it. But then it really doesn't go anywhere. They don't ever really challenge this idea of, well, what are these things, right? Well, they do it later with like Finn, where he's part of the stormtroopers as a slave. He's brought into it, and he revolts. But this idea of the clones, can they think on their own? The ethical, moral questions of this, so much to untap there, tap into that never really got addressed in the later sequel trilogy. But this sort of idea was creepy and kind of cool. And I loved Obi-Wan showing up and like figuring it all out himself. This was like cool Jedi detective work to sort of know, oh, they're building an army. We should be careful of this. But then they use this army to their advantage. And then obviously it ends up being to their disadvantage because we knew that Emperor had the final order to sort of take control of them when needed to, but asks the question of what was the Emperor's plan? Why he could have wiped them all out earlier and chose not to in Attack of the Clones. We'll get there in a second. But this scene, this idea of the sort of the clone army and these creatures who don't know better, and they're just sort of tasked with creating it, and him sort of playing it straight, trying not to get caught, and then meeting up with Jango Fett. I liked all that. The scene with Jango Fett and that action sequence actually was better than I remembered. It didn't feel like silly. It actually felt like there were points to it in the escalation. I actually liked that sequence better. So that surprisingly was, I'll give it's no Darth Maul Duel of the Fates scene by all means. I would argue there's not even really a pod race scene. There's that sort of chase scene in the beginning where they chase the shapeshifter. It's a little all over the place for me. I didn't love it. I liked sort of seeing that new sort of late night city and all the cars flying around. It was interesting to see that part of Star Wars and sort of the clubs. There's like a weird droid football game playing in the bar. That's the one thing I will give the prequels a lot of credit for is Lucas is dropping all these little Easter eggs and like pieces of the world. He's creating this sort of bigger universe, cooler places, cooler robots, different characters. He always introduces things instead of just retreading a lot of the past, which is what JJ sadly did as he moved forward. And so I do like that a lot, and I appreciate that George Lucas was always sort of building toys and building cool planets. He was a visionary. That's where George Lucas is a legend forever. I mean, he's done so much with this, but he did really design a lot of cool stuff. And so Attack of the Clones offers a few opportunities of the world building and stuff, but never like the killer sequence, right? It doesn't really have any killer sequences, except for, I guess, the end. For some, I wasn't a fan, but Yoda finally showing up and doing a lightsaber battle against Count Dooku. But we'll get there. Let me pull out a couple other clips. All right, so Clone Army is the one bonus I will give. Now, this part also felt key to me now after watching Rise of Skywalker, of also another thing that's sort of like, well, wait a second, does this make sense? So the request of the Senate almost 10 years ago. This was the Clone Army request that they made, and Mace Windu.
I was under the impression he was killed before that. Did the Council ever authorize the creation of a clone army?
No. Whoever placed that order did not have the authorization of the Jedi Council.
Bring him here. Question him. We will.
Yes, Master. I will report back when I have him.
Blind we are, if creation of this clone army we could not see.
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
Like what?
Only the Dark Lord of the Sith knows of our weakness. If informed the Senate is, multiply, our adversaries will.
So again, all these like sort of cutscene video game scenes, they really do feel that way. People are complaining about that in Rise of Skywalker, but it happens a lot in the prequels. There's a lot of like pause to like, let's walk through this moment of the Senate and the bubble opera and all these moments that are just like, this feels really exposition heavy and unnecessary. And then we'll do a wipe. So there's a lot of it. But the important thing there, this idea of that we've lost the Force, that they're losing their Force powers. The Force is diminished, in their words. What? So the Sith is more powerful than all the Jedi Council? Now, mind you, the Jedi Council isn't even dead yet. They're about to be dead, spoiler alert, soon enough. And some of them die here. But this idea that they can't see anything anymore? Why? What happened? It's not really answered. It sort of begs this question of like, well, so the Sith are more powerful? But then they're not, because then clearly the Emperor didn't really see through the real future because he dies. Or did he? Can we just pull him back again? That's the problem, right? I don't know. George Lucas said he died at the end of these because what's his name? Guy who plays the Emperor. How am I spacing on his name? But he admitted, George is like, no, I'm dead. And then suddenly they called him like, oh, cool, I'll come back. But to George, the Emperor was dead. But then they thought, no, let's bring him back. We can do it. And we'll get to that quote later. All right, next up scene to watch. Again, I'll give one more positive, but again, it wasn't as strong as it could have been in my mind. But one of my big the moments I forgot was positive was seeing Annie's mom in the first movie. And so she's back in this scene that's very important for his plot arc.
Is it you? I'm here, Mom. You're safe.
Annie? Annie? Oh, you look so handsome. My son. Oh, my grown-up son.
So this moment is actually pretty touching. Shmi, his mom, played, I had to look it up. I want to give her Pernilla August. Really an important character. And she tries to sort of, I'm complete, and I wish there was a little bit more moment of...
Stay with me, Mom. Everything...
It's an important moment there. That's a key part, because without that moment, he doesn't really has the arc to turn to Vader. And this moment, he does. And this moment of losing his mom, who's now been pillaged by the Sand People, gives him the opportunity to then go murder the Sand People and say later, I killed all of them. And all of that makes more sense. Now, I don't think it's actually... I don't think it happens well. It's not written and directed well. But the action at least was there of the idea. Okay, this is a key moment that I think was important. And then as he sort of goes and tells Padme,
Sometimes there are things no one can fix. You're not all powerful.
Well, I should be. Someday I will be.
he's still
I will
young.
be the most powerful Jedi ever. I promise you. I will even learn to stop people from dying.
Ooh, foreshadowing. But
It's
just
all Obi-Wan's
cheesy.
fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
Again, why is she into him?
I killed them. I killed them all.
I mean,
Dead.
this is important in that I believe it. He slaughtered them like animals. I believe this one because they murdered his mom. And this is just the one where I'm like, all right, if that's going to turn him into his first sort of taste for blood, it sort of makes sense. I do wish like there was a little bit more of like the Emperor behind it, like the Emperor sort of making sure she was sold there, so we get a little bit more of that anger later. I don't think that's ever revealed. But again, was that part of the Emperor's plan that just happened and the Emperor's like, oh, that was a bonus for me. Nice. But beyond that, I do believe her hesitation because while he's turning into a monster, clearly a crazy freaking monster, he's mourning the loss of his mom. And that moment is key to this whole story, I think. And I didn't remember how important that part was. So I give that the action props, but it's just not written or directed as well as I think it could have been. And again, just a lot of forced stuff. This this was just funny. It's a clear these are separatists made a pact. We said these are federation to trade. Dello Delegates.
In response to this direct
I mean, come on.
Misa proposed that the Senate give immediately emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
He like talks in silly dialects when they can, but then gets very serious when it's an important like end point. It just makes no sense, and it just this whole cameo is just like silly. Of Jar Jar is a senator. I mean, if anything, it's a funny dig on politicians and senators that they're all stupid because he's admitted he's stupid, this is stupid. It's just stupid, unnecessary moment that they didn't need. But hey, we have to have Jar Jar. And I remember people were like, Jar Jar's in the second one, I'm not seeing it. And this was sort of a very small little cameo he made. But still, even he feels like he had more moments than Rose Tico did in Rise of Skywalker, which is kind of crazy. But they brought him back probably about the same. So people didn't like Rose, I guess. I don't know who didn't like Rose. I just didn't like that plot. But they did bring her back more than Jar Jar. I think that was the only line he had. Or hi, he had one hi. Just a funny moment I want to mention. And then here, again, to hit the love story again. Oh, poor Natalie Portman. I'm not afraid to die.
I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life.
Oh my God. How did she do that with a straight face? How did she do it?
I love you.
Oh my God. It's like, what? He's surprised. What?
You love me?
What? Like, I'm a psycho stalker. I truly, deeply, madly, truly, deeply, mad. Isn't that a Savage Garden song? I don't buy it for a second. And this whole movie is about their love affair. Them, again, I keep thinking of like they're on the show The Bachelor. People just fall in love on that show because they're out doing these crazy dates. And this is like Bachelor Naboo. They're out and like he's on detail to watch her, and there's no other competitors. If she had 4 other Jedi contestants there to win her love, I am telling you, she would have kicked out Anakin because she would have said, "Oh my God, look at these other hot dudes that I could have had. Oh, and he has force powers too, and he's not a psycho crazy person who reminds me of the 10-year-old boy I used to hang out with." The whole thing's just creepy. It's creepy. It's not romantic at all. Kylo and Rey have a much better weird, awkward romantic relationship than these two do. And this just is a huge failure. Nothing in Phantom Menace is as bad as this. Attack of the Clones, by far the worst, just because there's so much of this forced, awkward, unbelievable love story. And it's like crucial to the movie. And then there's, on top of that, the villain is Count Dooku, who hasn't even shown up yet. He's like barely in the movie. He doesn't show up until look at this. He's hardly in the movie until he's like about to show up now. He had a quick cameo earlier, but it's like, oh, and suddenly Count Dooku is a bad guy. Who? Count Dooku? I was so confusing who he was, where he came from, and then learning, oh, he's a Sith too. So rule of twos. So who's his apprentice, or is he not? He's a Jedi. I'm not. I couldn't keep up. I don't understand. And then he's killed so quickly later that it just the whole in the beginning of the next one that it's like, what was the point of him? He doesn't even show up. He's not a real threat. And then they do the whole scene where they fight the big attack scene. They bring in the clones to fight the droids. Padma gets her shirt ripped open just 'cause. Her nipples are out the whole movie, which is weird. And then they rip her shirt off. They just overly sexualize her like crazy in this movie. I'm surprised she was okay with it. But whatever. That's something they've always done sort of in Star Wars in the beginning with Leia. This is sort of like the Leia and the slave bikini moment. They give her sort of the midriff showing. It's weird. But anyway, beyond all that, the scene happens where they all fight. And then there's that sort of really funny moment where I found it funny. I'm trying to find it as I do. I thought I had it. But Count Dooku flies off on his sort of like his like space walker spaceship and flies away from everybody to try and it doesn't get attacked.
I can't take Dooku alone. I need you.
Yeah, I need you. And then he's trying to we need to go. There it is. There's his little space, like motorized scooter, like blue, blue, blue. He's just flying away from everyone shooting at him. And then Natalie Portman Padme falls over, and he's like, I gotta get her now! And no, and finally Obi-Wan cracks some sense in him. He's like, dude, chill. You gotta bros before hoes, man. Like, the whole world's at stake. Your girl's strong. Like, let her do her thing. And then, of course, no, he never learns anything. Here he is.
You're gonna pay for all the Jedi that you killed today, Dooku.
So now, here's the problem. Anakin's like, yeah, no, how dare you murder all my friends in the Jedi. How quickly he turns in the next one, which I'll talk about, because while I think Revenge of the Sith is I see why people like it. I still have massive problems with it, which we'll address when I get to episode 3. But this whole, like, turn, he's upset that the Jedi are all dead, and then suddenly he's not later.
Now. No, Anakin, no!
No, Anakin, no, the high ground! And then, get out of here. I don't have time for you right now. And then it gives sort of a fun moment between him and Obi-Wan, but then even Obi-Wan gets knocked down. And then this sequence is okay, with Anakin and him sort of trying to do it. And then he's knocked down. And then, boom, loss of the arm, cauterized, is that what it's called? He's like, finally. And then, who's going to come in next? It's...
Well, you have my old Padawan.
Oh, that's who. It's his Padawan, of course. Just like Luke and Kylo. Oh, so Yoda, the best of the best. Count Dooku was his Padawan, who now has gone off, and Yoda has a bad student. So basically, everybody has bad students. So how did Luke not learn this? How is this not paralleled, not mentioned in the sequels? Because we now know. Oh, right, I forgot. Yoda's Padawan Dooku is the evil guy. Oh, and then Luke had Kylo. Oh man, but then Luke can't handle it and goes off to go live on the swamp planet. Was that a parallel because he thought Yoda did that? Yoda went off to sort of live in hiding, waiting, because the Jedi were all gone, and he knew if he came out, he'd be dead. Right? This is sort of how it plays out. But did Luke think he just ran away? It's odd. It's confusing to me. But then Yoda dies because he's there as a Force ghost. So did he, or was he waiting? Why wouldn't have Luke treated Rey a little bit more like Yoda treated him? Is what I'm stuck on. Especially now that we know Yoda had the same backstory, which I actually had forgotten, and then when I rewatched, I learned.
It is obvious that this contest cannot be decided by our knowledge of the Force.
Really? What? Dooku is as good as Yoda and just says, we clearly can't win with the Force, so space swords.
By our skills with a lightsaber.
Because that looks cooler for the movie than us standing here, Harry Potter lightning each other. And then we get this moment of people like, oh damn, Yoda's about to do some Jedi action! And this just doesn't make any sense. Like, what? Yoda's like been groaning the whole movie on his cane, and now he's just like young. I'm sorry. This scene should be the cool moment that we're like, yes! And I think they were hoping was like, oh my god, we finally get to see Yoda fight, but the size dimensions don't line up. I don't understand it. Why wouldn't you fight with both the lightsaber and the Force? Which they eventually do. And so that's how that moment happens. And then we have them marrying, and it's like, oh, yay, we love each other secretly. We are going, oh my gosh, these dresses, some of them are just ridiculous. Back to Naboo with C-3PO and R2-D2 there to be wedding photographers. They go and do this, and that's sort of the end of Let's Look Out, similar to sort of end of Empire, to the difference. So, anyway, overall, I don't understand Count Dooku. He shows up at the end to sort of be another threat because they can't show you the Emperor yet. And then he's sort of there he's his own sort of MacGuffin in a way. Oh, but then it's cool because he's Yoda's apprentice who went bad. The whole thing just sort of feels ineffective. And then, so on top of that, sort of the dynamics of the Force and everything and our bad guys, we have this horrendous love story that's entirely, I really do think she's like an abused girlfriend stuck in this really bad relationship. And you watch it, I'm just like, it is uncomfortable in many scenes because you're like, whoa, girl, come on, you can do so much better than him. This guy is crazy. And it's hard to watch and get invested into. And on top of all that, it's this one probably has the least connection to Rise of Skywalker. I mean, there's definitely some parallels there, talking about the Force and stuff. The fact that the Force is diminishing, I don't fully understand it. But and that he's, still, they think he's the chosen one still. That's important. And then we get a little bit more of the Emperor sort of grooming him. But this is really just sort of a placeholder between 1 and 3. And I feel like this one completely unnecessary. Now, this one sets up the cartoons, right? This one sets up the Clone Wars, etc. So I can see why fans might like it for that reason. But as a movie, standalone, without any other sort of extra series, I think this one's the worst. It doesn't hold up. The Yoda sequence and even that sort of Jango Fett moment, they're not good enough to warrant this. Phantom Menace, it's hard to say, and I'll rank it. Maybe I'll change my mind as I really think them all down. But so far, I got to put Phantom Menace above Attack of the Clones. Let's start there. We'll continue to go with each episode as the ranking continues. As for a rating on this one, I gave Phantom Menace a 5. I got to give this one. I'm going to give this one a 3. I really I was bored. There's a lot of action in it, but it's CGI nonsense, lightsabering. There's no sequences where I was like, oh, man, that was cooler than I remembered. It all just felt like a chore watching this one. And again, it's a second chapter that's sort of unnecessary. And what's necessary is sort of setting the tone for the Jedi's trusting Anakin, which I didn't believe, and the love story, which I didn't believe. The only sort of thing that was good was that sort of we see his mom die, but even that scene felt underwhelming and could have been even stronger. It was more effective in episode 1 when he's leaving his mom, but that return should have been really emotionally impactful, and it wasn't. Due to Hayden Christensen's performance or whatever, the writing, directing, all three, it doesn't pay off. So the clone army idea, while cool, I feel like sort of wasted and unclear who controlled what, and then we learned it really was the Emperor all along, but yeah, just a letdown. Unnecessary for me. Doesn't really add anything to the movies, and the things that they're trying to add, I thought it did poorly. So far, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. What do you think? Hit me down below. What are your thoughts as you rewatch this one? Any other connections to Rise of Skywalker that you think I missed? Let's have the conversation down in the comments so we can keep this going. You can also hit me up on social media at any time, at any signal. And as always, if you'd like to subscribe my channel, subscribe to my channel or support it in other ways, you can learn all about it in the description down below on ways to give, help, and promote this channel. So thanks so much for your support. Stay tuned for more episodes, rewatching as I go. In the meanwhile, have an awesome holiday this week if you're having it, and may the Force be with all of you. Thanks, everybody.